Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So today we're going to continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and I'm doing something completely different tonight just because I had this capture and I wanted to have some fun and talk about just how impressive the Nintendo 64 core is. So we're going to be playing the first 12 test chambers from the Portal 64 demake by James Lambert. It is wild that this exists in the first place as a fan game, and it is even more impressive that it's running as well as it is on the current Nintendo 64 core, because a game like this doesn't just run on Nintendo 64 hardware, it runs on the hardware with decades of experience after the Nintendo 64 left the actual retail space. What that means is in the intervening years, everyone has had a chance to take a look under the hood at Nintendo 64 decompiled code and the hardware and get results out of the actual platform that developers back in the 90s and early 2000s could probably only dream of because they didn't have all the time in the world. They were meeting release schedules and budgets. And as we move around the world of Portal 64 right now, there's going to be no cuts in this video. I'm going to do about a 12-minute voiceover, then I'm going to leave the rest of the campaign for you to watch if you so wish. And like I said, this is running on the current Nintendo 64 core on MiSTer FPGA, and that's why I love this as a preview. Of course, everyone wants to see Super Mario 64 and The Legends of Zelda Ocarina of Time because those are the experiences they remember from back in the day, but I actually enjoy really going over these fan mods and demakes because it's modern coding running on source hardware from the 90s, because this mod will run on real Nintendo 64 hardware, so it should run here as well. And I love these little visual effects. That little kind of particle curtain there that would have appeared in the original Portal game does look really good on the Nintendo 64. The modder of this game has done a great job of downgrading the graphics so they still look exactly like you would expect in a Portal game, but running on Nintendo 64 hardware with all the different visual trickery that source hardware could achieve. Because don't forget, there was a long period of time between the Nintendo 64 and Portal, but not as long as you actually would imagine. This game didn't come out that much longer than the Nintendo 64. But again, from a perspective of FPGA development, Robert FPGAZumSpass has been iterating on this core for some months now, and pretty much like 85 to 88% of the North American library works, and a lot of different fan mods work as well. But again, so much coding and trickery has got to go into something like Portal 64 to actually make the Portal concept work, because you can pass through walls, you can see areas in engine that you shouldn't be able to see. When Portal first came out on PC, it was mind-blowing, and the reviews said as such. To see it actually run on Nintendo 64 in FPGA is doubly mind-blowing. Not only are you getting the full fat Portal experience on Nintendo 64 spec hardware, you're also getting it on an FPGA core that is simulating real Nintendo 64 hardware. It's layers of inception you couldn't even possibly believe, or in this instance, pun very much intended, it's layers of portals that we're going through to make this happen. But this demake is so impressive. Outside of the fact that it's running on MiSTer FPGA, the developer of this has done things with the hardware that I'm sure even Nintendo would have thought were impossible back in the 90s when they were developing this. And that's why it's so much fun to go through modifications like this. All of those years of experience that everyone have gleaned since the hardware left the shelves can now be utilized to make new games for the hardware itself. So many modders are doing things with Nintendo 64 that were never thought possible, and I can't wait to see what 2024 brings in the modding scene that we can play on MiSTer FPGA, because it seems like in the last couple of years, Nintendo 64 has become a hot commodity as far as the actual gameplay and mods are concerned. And I do love that the elevators even simulate that loading time, which would have been in the original game. Definitely no real loading in this, it's based on a cartridge, but I love that they actually left that loading element in there, and those transparent frosted windows really do sell the illusion of being able to see through something without it being 100% opaque. All of the geometry, all of the textures, the cameras on the wall really do sell the illusion that Portal just came out in the Nintendo 64 era. That's the highest praise you can give any sort of demake, is that it feels like the real game except slightly different. And now that we have the blue Portal gun here, the fun can really start. And again, the fact that this even works on the core in and of itself or on real Nintendo 64 hardware is wild. Going through walls and recreating spaces in engine in real time for you to traverse a world in a way that it was not normally laid up is just insane. And I will say the sound effects and the music both in the demake and on the core are outstanding. Go ahead and just listen for 30 seconds and I'll come back and talk more about this demake, the MiSTer FPGA core, and Portal in general. But enjoy and have some cake.
For your own safety, do not destroy vital testing apparatus. Certain objects may be vital to your success. Do not destroy testing apparatus. For your own safety, do not destroy vital testing apparatus.
It's just fun to hear GLaDOS in the Nintendo 64 and in the Nintendo 64 core from MiSTer FPGA. It's not anything you would ever expect, and that's why I love it so much. This is one of those experiences that feels so wrong yet feels so right at the exact same time, and that is compounded by the fact that we're playing this on MiSTer FPGA. It's just so fun to think that this is even possible in 2023, and that's the great thing about technology and modding in general. Sometimes it just basically feels like magic. If you told me and you gave me this game that this was a lost beta from the 90s and the developers of Portal were working on it before they transitioned to PC and picked the idea up some years later, I would 100% believe that. You could fool me if I didn't know Portal actually existed. That is how good this is, and I will leave a link to the developer's YouTube channel down below as well, because he talks a lot more underneath the hood about what's going on here in the actual code and the demonstrations in and of itself. But one of the main reasons I picked this for a specific MiSTer FPGA video is to talk about how good the core is performing. Basically, when you have a set of hardware specifications like the Nintendo 64, there's certain implementations within the hardware, effects, or different things that you can pull off, and that fizzling of the camera through that little particle mirror right there was sheer perfection as far as coding is concerned. But it's very possible, nay likely, that this game utilizes some function of the Nintendo 64 hardware that could very easily be undocumented or never used in a retail game back in the 90s. And that is why its use on MiSTer FPGA is so impressive, because it's basically factoring in decades worth of knowledge after the hardware was no longer being used. And that is why it's so impressive. As an example, we've all seen Super Mario 64, we all know you can do a 120-star run on MiSTer FPGA, but seeing these fan games is impressive in its own right, because there's an absolute metric ton of them on the Nintendo 64, and if they run on real hardware, you would expect them on a core like this to run within FPGA as well, but that's exactly what we're getting here with Portal 64, and I particularly love the physics engine in this game as well. Every single object has a certain sense of weight and moves in the game world how you would expect it to if you could actually imagine that object in real life, because that companion cube falls through the portal with a weight that feels like that thing should be something you could pick up, but definitely still has some heft to it. And this is all mathematical calculations going on, whether it's an FPGA or on the core. The MIP CPU is probably handling a lot of those physics workups right there. Again, a filmmaker, not an electrical engineer or a coder, but it's how I see it, and I love seeing it on MiSTer FPGA. And it's been so much fun to do all of these different previews, but to talk about something like this feels extra special. Not only is it an amazing mod, but it's just incredible that it actually works on MiSTer, and I can't wait to see what more happens with Portal 64. There's 12 test chambers in this video, you can watch them all, but we're just kind of going through the first part of the game as a special one-off preview on the development of the Nintendo 64 core. But this was definitely a game that a lot of people tested when the core started loading up more things, and the first time we actually got Portal, it was just absolutely fun to see. There was no audio and there was definitely some freezing, but as we move on here, all of the loading between levels, if that's actually what it is, works. The little screen flash on the test chamber number works. You get audio, you get voice dialogue. It just feels like playing a real Nintendo 64, except playing a game that shouldn't technically exist for that hardware. And that's how good the current core is. You can play 85% of the North American retail library, you can play fan mods and demakes, you can play Portal 64. Just seeing the Portal across the world on the core is insane. This is impressive on PC, but doubly more so here on a piece of hardware that's basically like a calculator compared to the computers that were running Portal when that game came out. That's how quick technology changes, but when technology changes, people get reminiscent about the old stuff, and that's why people like Robert are even developing Nintendo 64 cores in the first place. We don't need a Nintendo 64 core, but people have nostalgia for the hardware and they want to see whether or not it's possible. The same way that someone has nostalgia for Portal and Nintendo 64 and wanted to see if it was possible to remake a game on inferior hardware. Obviously, they've been more than wildly successful because we're playing it right now today. And the funniest thing is, for the longest time, Nintendo 64 was considered to be the impossible port on MiSTer FPGA. The hardware was too powerful, the CPU ran at too high of a frequency, all of those things people thought precluded Nintendo 64 from ever joining the MiSTer FPGA core army. But we are here today playing Nintendo 64, and we're playing what feels like an impossible port as well. Portal 64 doesn't feel like it should work. This game is so complicated, it does so many trippy things, you would never think that it would be possible to get this to run on real hardware, let alone at a frame rate that's totally playable. But again, we're playing what feels like an impossible port on what feels like an impossible core, but yet you can do it today if you download the Portal 64 ROM and pop it on the work in progress MiSTer core. You can run through Aperture Laboratories, you can hear GLaDOS talk in the background, you have a fully functional Portal gun, and you have the first 12 test chambers here to play anytime you want, including elevators that fake that loading. But as we come out here, just look at this geometry. It almost feels like MC Escher, which I'm sure was some sort of inspiration for the developers of the original Portal. And this is all happening on FPGA code right now. But again, if you've got a flash card, you can play this on original hardware as well. And it's just so absurd. But that's what I love about MiSTer FPGA in general, and what I love about fan mods. Nothing about MiSTer feels like it should be possible. Recreating hardware in FPGA by using HDL and Verilog code to simulate original hardware on a file size that's smaller than the PDF document you saved for your college project back in the day. It doesn't seem like any of this should work, but yet when it does work, we cannot be enthusiastic enough about it. If you ever wondered what the size of a core file is, it is actually quite small. It definitely is underneath most PDFs. I checked before I said that line. But as we come out to this last test chamber, I'm going to show you before I stop the voiceover and you just get to watch a long play. Just take this all in. This is Portal on the Nintendo 64. James Lambert, the developer, you deserve the highest praise possible because I have never been this impressed with a fan remake of a game. This just feels like Portal, except on the Nintendo 64, and that's all you can really say about this. But if you like this format of video, a little bit of a longer core test on one individual game, let me know down below. Maybe I'll do this for some of the more well-known games, like give you guys 25 minutes of just Super Mario 64, because I know not everyone's testing the work in progress core. Some of you won't touch it until it hits update all. But tell me down below, are you testing the core, or are you just watching these videos to find out what's going on? But again, falling through the floor, which ends up being the ceiling through a portal on MiSTer FPGA on Nintendo 64, this doesn't seem like it is real. It seems like it's 100% made up and someone did a CG render in the background, but you can go play it today. Short of that, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe. If you want to watch the rest of Portal 64, you definitely should. It's a ton of fun. And if you do want to play the game, it's available on Nintendo 64 with a flash cart, and you can play it on MiSTer FPGA, how we're doing it here. And big thanks to Andy D for helping with some of the captures on this. Short of that, I will see you guys next time, but enjoy the rest of the playthrough. It is quite trippy, and I can't believe it works. Bye-bye.
Please note that we have added a consequence for failure. Any contact with the chamber floor will result in an unsatisfactory mark on your official testing record, followed by death. Good luck. Very impressive. Please note that any appearance of danger is merely a device to enhance your testing experience. The Enrichment Center regrets to inform you that this next test is impossible. Make no attempt to solve it. The Enrichment Center apologizes for this clearly broken test chamber. Once again, the Enrichment Center offers its most sincere apologies on the occasion of this unsolvable test environment. Fantastic. You remained resolute and resourceful in an atmosphere of extreme pessimism. Hello again. To reiterate previous warning, momentum. At the Enrichment Center, we promise never to value your safety above your unique ideas and creativity. However, do not destroy vital testing apparatus. Hello again. To reiterate previous warning, momentum. At the Enrichment Center, we promise never to value your safety above your unique ideas and creativity. However, do not destroy vital testing apparatus. Hello again. To reiterate previous warning, momentum. Spectacular. You appear to understand how a portal affects forward momentum, or to be more precise, how it does not. Momentum, a function of mass and velocity, is conserved between portals. In layman's terms, speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out. The Enrichment Center promises to always provide a safe testing environment. In dangerous testing environments, the Enrichment Center promises to always provide useful advice. For instance, the floor here will kill you. Try to avoid it. The device has been modified so that it can now manufacture two linked portals at once. As part of an optional test protocol, we are pleased to present an amusing fact. The device is now more valuable than the organs and combined incomes of everyone in
subject hometown here.
Get ready to fling yourself. Fling into space. Get ready to fling yourself. Fling into space. We